Starting. Remember, everybody, be off video and muted, please, during the meeting. Just a reminder. If there are questions, you will be called. All right, and we are live.
Okay. Well, good
Live.
afternoon, everyone. Last Environment Subcommittee meeting of March. That I can promise. But not for the week, but for at least for March. Okay, thank you everyone for joining. We're going to start with SB 253 and the amendments that have been worked on. And my understanding is Delegate Healy is good with them. So, Kristen, if you could review the amendments or the reprint with the amendments in them.
Well, do you want me just to go right to the amendment, or do you want so the bill came over and it requires certain extra items that must be addressed in an RD&D permit for the incineration of chemical warfare material when it's done for research, development, and demonstration purposes. And the language here is ensuring that would prohibit the department from issuing an RD&D permit until under the bill, unless certain emergency preparedness plan has been developed with adequate public participation and has been presented at public meetings and counties at risk from a maximum credible event. And then that term of art, there is a definition being provided. Scroll back to the definitions. A maximum credible event is being defined as a hypothetical worst case explosion, fire, or toxic agent release that is realistically possible. And I believe that is based on a federal regulation.
Okay.
Back to the language if you want to see it. It's modeled.
Sure.
It's modeled after language that is in current law that relates to chemical warfare material. The sponsor of the amendment worked closely with Department of Commerce and MDE and others to make sure that the requirements made sense in this scenario. And so that's where we're at.
Okay. Delegate Foley.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move the amendments.
Okay.
Second.
Is there a second? Okay. Any questions about the amendments? All right.
Yes, Mr.
Yes.
Chair.
Delegate Otto, sure.
Does the Department of Commerce and MDE, they're comfortable with these amendments, or?
I believe so, but if Jen and someone from MDE are on the call and can see Jeremy
Thank you,
and
Mr. Chair.
Jen.
DE is good with these amendments.
Okay, and Jen is Commerce. Yes.
Commerce is good with these amendments as well.
Okay. All right. Very good.
All right, thank you.
Sure. Okay. Any other questions about the amendments? All right. They've been moved and seconded. All those in favor of the amendment say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. The bill as amended. Is there a
Move the bill
motion?
as amended, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor of the bill as amended say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Bill passes as amended. Thank you. Thank you for everyone, subcommittee members, as well as agency reps for your, and other advocates for your work on this. Okay, moving on to SB 901. Before I ask Kristen to review the reprint, which has all the amendments the subcommittee members requested, I did say that we'd have, a little time to answer any remaining questions that subcommittee members might have about what the bill does or any particular provision. So is there, does anyone have any questions that they'd like to, any questions about the bill, any particular provision before we go to the reprint with the amendments? We're all good? Okay, let's see, Delegate Otto.
So you'll explain what these amendments are as we go
Yes.
through the reprint?
Yes, we will.
All right.
Okay. Okay, so, well then, Kristen, could you pull the reprint up and go through the different amendments that have been offered? And when we get to each of the amendments, I'll ask, the subcommittee sponsor of them if, there's anything they want to add or, to the description.
Yeah. So the first amendment's, I think the only amendment where I'm going to have to jump around. Delegate Ruth has an amendment that would ensure that the state could still adopt a bottle deposit program. And so there's two parts of her amendment. The first one is altering the definition of beverage container to exclude containers that are covered under a beverage container deposit return program. And then we'll go to so this is on page 9 after line 14. And so do you want to start with this, or would you like me to go to the other language that's in the bill?
You mean that's related
Yes.
to this amendment? Yes, why don't you do that?
Okay, so scroll to, I'm trying to figure out what's the
I
quickest way to
believe it's
scroll.
page 24.
Yep, I'm going to page 24.
A big jump.
Almost there. Okay, and so this language is saying that the bill would not preclude the separate adoption of a bottle deposit program in the state to reduce beverage container pollution and plastic waste.
Okay, Delegate Ruth, anything you want to add to the, rationale for the amendment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And, it does, this committee put a lot of work into the bottle deposit bill. And while it's not looking good for this year, it's my hope that we can, at some point, get it to pass. And we just want to make sure that whatever we're doing here doesn't, preclude the opportunity to have a bottle deposit program. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, and why don't we, I see Delegate Foley has a question, so I guess we'll take, questions on each amendment as we discuss them. So Delegate Foley?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have some reservations about putting language in a bill for a bill that doesn't look like it's going to pass. But having said that, my question is, maybe for one of the advocates, does this bill preclude the separate adoption of a beverage container deposit as written? I mean, deposit program as written?
Delegate Foley, I'm sorry, you mean without the amended language or with?
Yes, without the amended language. Does it preclude the bottle bill provisions if they were to pass without the amendment?
Anyone from among the advocates, Andrew or Scott? Can you address that, or anyone else? Peter?
Hi, legally speaking, I don't think that the bill would preempt or preclude the adoption of a separate bottle deposit program. I will say we are seeing a trend that emerged with Minnesota of including language specifically regarding deposit return systems or bottle bills, just because you are dealing with packaging material that could be regulated under either program. Minnesota has language saying that they need to harmonize the system if any type of bottle bill comes later, because you'd be moving it out of this new program and putting it into a bottle bill. So I don't think legally it is preempted or precluded, but we are seeing language in these programs that is popping up in other states, just to clarify.
Okay, you good, Delegate Foley?
Yeah, well, a follow-up question of Peter, if I may. So you mentioned Minnesota. Does Minnesota currently have a bottle bill program in place?
No, they do not. They became the 5th state with an EPR program last year. They're considering a bottle bill. I believe there's legislation this session. They have language in their EPR law, the new one, that says if you pass a deposit return system, we're going to make sure the systems are harmonized as you remove the beverage containers from the new EPR system into a bottle bill. So they're looking to do something similar, which is just keeping it open that they understand this may come down the line.
Right. And do we have any experience with any of the jurisdictions like Canada, British Columbia? My understanding is there's a program in British Columbia. Is there any experience with bottle return, deposit return programs with any of these bills that exist or any of these laws that exist? Do you know of?
In Canada and in the majority of US states, most of the places that have adopted EPR for packaging have a pre-existing bottle bill.
Okay.
We have not had experience where a state has passed EPR and then passed a bottle bill. And I don't think that's the case in Canada either, where they've had EPR and then created a deposit return system or a bottle bill.
So they had the deposit return system first.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying? And then they passed. Did they put language in the EPR regarding the bottle bills that were in place?
In all the states that have pre-existing bottle bills, when they passed EPR, they exempted beverage containers that are covered under their bottle bill program from the EPR program to make clear that those continue to be regulated under the bottle bill and that there isn't kind of double regulation on those products under both programs.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, any other questions about this amendment? All right, why don't we move on to the next one?
So we're going to go back to page 12. Okay, so on
Right.
page 12, in line 18, this is Delegate Stein's amendment that was, it's clarifying the packaging that is for products that's covered under a paint stewardship program. So instead of saying collected and properly managed through this program, it says packaging for products subject to the paint stewardship program.
Right, just to provide clarity about what is, about the reference with respect to the paint stewardship program, that it's packaging subject to the program. And I know the Senate sponsor is fine with this language. Any questions about this one? Okay, why don't we move on to the next?
So new paragraph 14 is addressing packaging for durable goods. So this would exempt packaging used for the long-term protection or storage of a product that has a lifespan of not less than 5 years as determined by the department. So the department would still be, determining whether or not packaging would qualify under this provision.
Okay, this is Delegate Lehman's proposed amendment, is that right?
That's correct.
Delegate Lehman, would you like to add anything about the rationale for this amendment?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. So I was approached by Hallmark, which also owns Crayola crayons, and asked to put in a couple of amendments. The second one was more extensive, and I ended up, on balance, deciding it did not make sense to request exemptions for a whole host of things like kids' coloring books and, and greeting cards and other things. But this amendment, I thought made sense. I do believe makes sense. And I've actually since tweaked it, and I'll explain that in a minute, since I submitted it. But the idea behind this is to, have this Maryland law align with some other states that allow flexibility in regulations to create an exemption for packaging that is used to keep the original product in for, on average, 5 years. California and Maine both allow for this through regulations, and I believe another state allows for it outright. But the idea behind the bill, I guess, is to create an immediate impact on our waste stream. So by acknowledging that there are certain packages with longer lifespans, and primarily the example that was used with me that I could really relate to is crayons. Anybody that, we've all been kids and had boxes of crayons for school or at home. If you're a parent and have children who have had boxes of crayons, you almost always keep the crayons in the box they came in. For often, for so many years, the box eventually is falling apart. So the idea is that you would exempt those kinds of those packages that fit that criteria. But then, rather than just an outright exemption, I tweaked it. And Kristen, thank you for writing amendments, creating them kind of on the fly. I tweaked it further to add as determined by the department, so that there isn't a question across the board. Well, okay, does a crayon box fit that, into that category? Yes or no? Then does this or that other container? And so that it's on, if it's not clear, it's going to be the department basically that has the final say. And so that's the thinking behind this provision.
Okay. Any questions? Let's see, Delegate Foley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Delegate Lehman, did you run this amendment by the sponsor?
I did. I spoke to him, and he is not crazy about it. He argued, we talked on the phone last night, but then today he sent an email that I know he copied the chair, and I don't know who else was on that, but he did point out in response to my original amendment that he did his own research, and he came back and said of the 5 states that have passed EPR laws, even though I don't think any of them have taken effect yet, but he said he was the one who provided the information about California and Maine allowing for it with the, basically with the discretion of the department. So while he didn't like my original proposal, that was the response he provided in writing. And I said to him, then my plan would be, I get your point, my plan would be to tweak the amendment. I think the original language said a lifespan of 5 or more years. And this is now taken from, this is the exact language of Maine and California, lifespan of not less than 5 years. And then the most important part is as determined by the department. So, yeah, I don't, know if you all would know if he's done outreach to the rest of you on that, but that's kind of where it was left.
And Mr. Chair, I have been in communication with Triple E's counsel, and they've seen this language. It's based on California, and I think the response was they could live with it, but so I did hear directly from that office.
Yeah, I view it as a compromise with the added language as determined by the department. So it can't be just everything under the sun.
Right, that was important.
Yeah, and that's my understanding as well. So, with this language that Senate sponsor, as you said, while not wild about it, could live as an additional exemption. Okay, any additional questions? Okay, thank you. Why don't we move on to the next one?
So the next one, I think we're going to page 14. So this is language, another amendment that Delegate Stein offered, which would clarify that this packaging, the paper packaging, relates to residential paper rather than consumer materials.
Yeah, and I think it's to sort of add some additional clarity around the fact that it's non-commercial, for non-commercial use. And the sponsor is okay with this. Any questions about this amendment? Okay, why don't we move on?
just a technical amendment there on page 17 in line 5. The item was marked as a number 2 rather than item C. So that was just something on the technical side that was updated.
Okay.
Okay, we've got to jump to page 25. That's the bottle bill 1. So the bill, as it came over, would have allowed costs for developing and implementing regulations to be covered in 2026 only. And this language would allow these costs to be covered as necessary, the department's costs.
Right, and this is as requested by MDE and Delegate Baylor is the sponsor of the amendment. Anything you want to add?
No, I think just this was kind of requested by MDE and the Senate sponsor is good with it as well.
Okay, any questions about this? All right, why don't we move on? Kristen, is there
So
anything else?
So there's one other amendment that I received from the council and Triple E that there was language that was here, let me get to that. So in the reprint includes language on page 33 that's intended to clarify the methodology for reimbursements, that they would be exclusive of exempt producers as well as exempt materials.
Okay. So just making clear that the methodology for reimbursement of covered services for covered materials excludes not just exempt materials, but those who are exempt producers. I guess that's what you just said, Kristen. So I'm not adding anything new. Any questions about this one? And again, this was suggested by council, and the Senate sponsor is fine with it. Kristen?
I've heard through council that they thought it made sense to them. I did not hear directly from the Senate sponsor.
Okay. Okay. Any questions about this amendment? Okay. Is that the last one?
I believe so.
Okay. Great. So at this point, we have several amendments. I'll entertain well, let's see, Delegate Foley, did you have a question?
Yes, Mr. Chair, if I may,
Sure.
more of a statement. In the last meeting, there was some back and forth between myself and Montgomery County officials, and there was an amendment verbally offered by Montgomery County officials. I have since had discussions with them, and they wanted me to make clear to the subcommittee that Montgomery County supports the bill without the amendment that was proposed, that they're fine. It's not going to affect the operations in Montgomery County, and they're looking forward to working with the PRO. So I just want to make that clear to the committee. Thank you.
Okay, sure. Does anyone want to move the amendments as a group?
Move the amendments as a group.
Second.
Second, okay. Delegate Otto, do you have a question?
Yeah, I wanted to ask the advocates for the paper industry if the amendment satisfies their needs. They had an issue on page 14.
Sure. So someone from the paper industry who would want to.
Hi, this is Mark Pitts from the American Fork and Paper Association. Thank you for asking that question and appreciate being able to weigh in here. I would say that speaking for the paper industry, we would say no. This doesn't really adequately address our concerns. Our concerns, one was that for paper products, that they be limited to printed items that are in the bin, when we look at what kind of things are in the recycle bin, what you don't see is unprinted items. That's a flaw that was in the Minnesota definition of paper. And then separately, in the hierarchy of the producer, we also felt like that was also flawed as well and could create some confusion about and duplication about what entities would be subject to those fees. So that was our intent to try to fix those things. We know that, the Minnesota language was adopted. However, that EPR program has never hit the ground yet, and none of them are perfect. And it was our hope to try to fix those through amendments on the definition of paper and the hierarchy of producer to try to make those problematic issues handled.
So do
Okay.
you have suggestions of how to change that?
Yes, sir. We had proposed a definition of paper that included the word printed, which was not put forward. We also put forward an amendment for the producer for paper products, given that the supply chain for paper products is different than that from glass or paper-based packaging. We need to fit, and that was not extended either.
Delegate Otto, I will say if, this particular amendment on page 14 was something that came from the paper folks. It's a technical amendment, doesn't address the more substantive issue that the gentleman was just addressing. At this point, we've all amendments for the subcommittee consideration have been drafted. If there's anything that you want to propose to the full committee, that's certainly an option for you.
All right, well, we'll consider that then. Thank you.
Okay. Any
Mr. Chair? Oh, sorry. Erin Brower, I represent Hallmark and Crayola. Just want to thank you for the opportunity to join this meeting today. I just wanted to speak and thank you for the long-term storage carve out. We really appreciate that.
By the way, Erin, I just want to say we typically have subcommittees make the request for someone to speak, but if you want to go ahead, sure.
I'm sorry, just wanted to say thank you and just appreciate the time.
Sure. Okay. Any other questions from subcommittee amendments about the amendments? Delegate Baylor.
I have no questions. I was going to move the bill as amended if.
Yeah, I think we still have to officially approve the amendments first. So, hold on to your idea for 10 seconds. So, okay, all those in favor of the amendment say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Now Delegate Baylor, if you want to move the bill as amended.
Oh, move the bill as amended.
Second.
Second. All right. All those in favor of the bill as amended, say aye.
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 Oppose.
No.
Okay, Delegate Otto. All right. Thank you. The bill passes as amended. Thank you to everyone who was involved in the work on this bill and, spent time. And I know, several folks spent time over the weekend working on the amendments. And Kristen, many thanks as always for your time in putting this all together. All right. So we are done with our agenda for today, but we
Mr.
will,
Chair.
Delegate Ruth. Yeah, Delegate Ruth, I'll call on you in 1 second. So, but we will be meeting again Wednesday afternoon. So stay tuned for that. But Delegate Ruth.
And thank you, Mr. Chair. I just did want to thank Kristen, and you mentioned people working on the weekend, and I know that she worked a lot on the weekend, even up till late last night.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Delegate Ruth.
Yes. All right. Yeah, definitely. Okay, Delegate Lehman.
Yeah, just ditto. Kristen, I think I got an email from you after 10 o'clock last night. That does not go unnoticed. Thank you for your hard work.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, anything else from subcommittee members? All right, well, with that, we are adjourned and see everyone.